I think it's going to complicate the story for precious metals as it did in 2025, and it wasn't necessarily a bearish catalyst when you look at price action and some of the commodities that you were talking about earlier. Silver up 150 plus percent, gold up significantly as well. But we do think it's going to lead to volatility. When you look at just what's happened in copper markets, for example, over the last several months, there's been a surge in copper moving to the US from London. Same thing in silver because the critical minerals list in the US continues to grow. I think there's over 60 different metals on that list. So that brings the potential threat of tariffs. I know the administration is going to review some of those tariffs in June and July, so we'll maybe get an announcement there. But traders are wasting no time in investing and moving some of that metal back to the US just in case we get any type of tariffs. So we do think the demand side as well for a commodity like silver or copper remains strong, like the macro backdrop. An AI play as well, but also in the green energy transition, some of the infrastructure build outs. We think copper and silver are going to be important metals to watch in 2026, and we think the trend will continue higher for both.
Adam, what is the technical trend, or what does the technical market look like for the U.S. dollar? We saw a sell-off earlier in the year on some of the concerns about the implementation of tariffs. It's since stabilized, but still, 8%, 9% lower than where it started the year. How do you view the dollar here?
This is going to be a big one for this year. And this is a trend we've been watching carefully. As Paul, you mentioned, this may be a bottom developing. That's what we view this as. If you zoom back on the dollar index kind of to the '09 lows and you draw a trend line, we call it a secular uptrend that's been in place. The dollar has not broke that uptrend. So the level that we're watching technically is 96 on the US dollar index. If we start breaking below that on a sustainable way, that would suggest the resumption of this downtrend that's been in place for the dollar since early last year will resume. That to us would suggest start to kick the tires international, especially emerging markets. But for now, we're giving that secular uptrend the benefit of the doubt. Maybe we'll see a bounce here. Need to clear kind of 100, just over 100 to get through some resistance and actually have a breakout from the bottom. But it's certainly an important chart to watch as we move into the new year.
Technically speaking, Bitcoin has traded in a narrow range between 85,000 to 90,000 in recent weeks. What is the price action you are seeing? It looks like there's a buildup in some latent volatility, but who knows, because such squeezes have historically preceded sharp directional moves.
It's been a tough one for Bitcoin bulls. It started to break its uptrend back below the 200-day moving average. It's kind of consolidating. Another one that maybe is a short-term bottom here. I think there is risk you get back down to the April lows. When you look at just the overall trend, the story, at least on the chart, has been broken. You're seeing that momentum start to roll over a little bit. Maybe you get some relief rallies off these oversold levels, but certainly I think there's still downside risk for the Bitcoin market.
Adam, how about the precious metals? Boy, we saw gold and then really silver, more than double last year. Some really big moves in precious metals here. Now what do we do?
I think you buy the dip
Okay.
to keep it simple, right? We're certainly getting some dips over the last few days, very volatile, especially in silver markets with the CME group raising margins. There were some restrictions on pure play silver funds in China. And I think, look, the market was just simply overbought. So we had some profit taking pressure. That's normal. Even when you see these big moves, when you have 160, 150% move as silver did, you should expect pullbacks, and maybe they're double digits. That comes with the territory of these parabolic trends. When they end, you tend to get a pretty big retracement. Maybe we'll see that in the first part of 2026 with silver. But I do think it is more of a buy the dip market. The fundamentals and the macro story, especially for gold, with central bank buying being such a big factor in that trade, I think that's going to continue. I think that's starting to broaden out to silver as maybe the central banks get a little bit of sticker shock with these higher gold prices in 2025. So we're seeing maybe a diversification there, but certainly a supportive trend. I think the geopolitical environment is another one that supports the market. And then we have the Fed continuing to reduce interest rates, another one that should help gold as well.